galactic series that is Star Wars is one of the most influential and unique series to ever exist, with George Lucas pioneering a modern era of both film and novel alike, with Star Wars inspiring much of the stories that you see today. George Lucas single-handedly broke the film industry by introducing these one singular trilogies. But today, if there is anything to be said about Star Wars, it is undisputedly that the myriad of entities dwelling within it all possess immense power. Previously, we have discovered entities such as Selmakor, the Entity, Nol Nol, the Bedlam Spirits, and the Father of Shadows, all in their own right, exceptionally formidable beings capable of exerting their will on a continental scale, something that I believe is truly and very impressive. However, today, we are going to be exploring another one of these entities. By fact, one of the founders of the Ones, that being the Mother, Abeloth, the Queen of the Stars, and the Lord of Chaos. Abeloth was an exceptionally powerful entity, a being of immense dark side power. She bathed in the pool of knowledge and drank from the font of power, gaining both the power that the son contained and the daughter wielded. Using this power, she single-handedly dominated her children, using and exerting her immense power. Many have speculated Abeloth is actually an immortal entity and cannot be killed, unlike the rest of the Ones, with Luke Skywalker while he was the Grand Master, after the events of the Fate of the Jedi novel series, claiming that it was one of the primary objectives for the Jedi Order to retrieve the Dagger of Mortis from the collapsing force plane that was Mortis. In case Abeloth ever returned, they would have a way to vanquish her for good, and even this was only speculation on Luke's part. So, my friends, Abeloth is obviously an exceptionally formidable entity, a very virgin in the Force itself, embodying the pure power of the dark. However, what about the pure might of the Chosen One, that of Anakin Skywalker? Anakin Skywalker, was his full potential, would have unquestionably become the most powerful Force user of all time, outclassing Palpatine, his own son in Luke, as well as Emperor Vitiate. Anakin would have been able to exert impressive force feats if he had attained his full potential, in either the light or the dark. So, my friends, join us as we journey into the unknown regions, explore the galaxy that is unknown, venture into the Maw, and discover what if Anakin had reached his full potential, and would a full potential Anakin had the capacity to stop Abeloth, the Mother, the Queen of Shadows? Well, my acolytes, let us proceed. Starting off, we have to analyze Abeloth and Anakin's feats. Abeloth was stated to be able to gorge herself on the suffering and death of billions on Coruscant by Ben Skywalker, the direct legacy and son of Luke Skywalker. Abeloth, straight after drinking from the font of power and bathing in the pool of knowledge, gaining both the power of both the son and the daughter, was capable of, when the son and daughter went to confront their caretaker, absolutely effortlessly dominating them, bringing them to their knees by tapping into the innermost force energy swirling around inside her, bringing her very children to her knees, and would have absolutely obliterated them if the father had not intervened, saving his children from the wrath of the mother. The father was appalled by Abeloth, even somewhat fearing her, fleeing to the ethereal realm of Mortis, with the father inducing his influence on the Killiks to create Centerpoint Station. Centerpoint Station being something that would induce and keep contained the black hole cluster known as the Maw, which would serve as Abeloth's prison for the next 100,000 years. Abeloth emerged every few millennia, exerting her will over the galaxy in powerful ways of pure dark side energy. Abeloth was eventually, every time the flow of the course shifts, she would emerge from her hiding and prison inside the Maw, where its son and daughter were dispatched to lock her back into her prison, exploiting her emotional vulnerability and using their superior control to her raw power in order to dominate her and send her back into the Maw. Anakin has a very similar feat. Anakin, while on Mortis, during a test that the father supplied to him, telling him that he needed to know if he was the prophesied Chosen One. Abeloth, like Anakin, was capable of tapping into the innermost force nexuses running through Mortis, with Obi-Wan stating to Anakin that the planet was a very nexus, a very vergence in the Force itself, and that he needed to use it. Anakin then proceeded to use the Force, harnessing it and channeling it through him, using the Force to dominate the son and daughter, changing it from day to night, sun to moon, dark to light. Anakin proceeded to dominate the son and daughter, forcing them out of their animal, gargoyle, and eagle avatars and onto the ground before him, dominating them. However, the father went on to explain that Anakin could only do this while he was on Mortis, and that anywhere else in the galaxy, he would still be restricted to his potential. The father also believed that if Anakin was on Mortis, he had the capacity to restrain the son and daughter, dominating them and keeping them pinned as the battle of light and dark ensued over the wider galaxy. Abeloth was capable of doing this, and on Mortis, Anakin was also capable of doing this, although we should note this was only on Mortis, as the father explained that once he returned, he would merely be a shadow of the power he had experienced. So, theoretically, Anakin Skywalker on Mortis would be capable to contend with Abeloth. He would be able to exert similar powers, with Abeloth having the power and raw abilities of the son and the daughter, but having no control over that power. Personally, I believe the son and daughter were capable of entombing her, along with her emotional vulnerability. If Anakin was capable of tapping into this emotional vulnerability, or using his superior control, then I personally believe Anakin Skywalker on Mortis would have had the capacity to dominate and defeat Abeloth. Although, anywhere else in the Star Wars galaxy, in my opinion, I believe that Abeloth would defeat the Chosen One, even with his full potential, quite handily. Many have speculated that Anakin's power would have eventually surpassed the father, as well as Abeloth. However, we have to understand that the father, as Anakin was told, was weakening, meaning that Anakin would only be relevant and comparable at his full potential on Mortis to this weaker version of the father, which was still able to dominate his children given enough effort. Abeloth was capable of fighting and contending with a stronger version of the father, and still nearly won. Abeloth was immortal, a whole separate weight class in the Force. Anakin had over 40,000 midichlorians coursing through its veins, but even that doesn't even hold a shadow to the embodiment of the dark side itself. Abeloth is in a whole other weight class to Anakin. Anakin, if he was on Mortis, may have the ability to best Abeloth 1 time out of 10. Perhaps a little bit more. However, if Abeloth fights Anakin anywhere else on the Star Wars galaxy, even if Anakin had mastered both light and dark very similar to Revan and achieved his full potential, Abeloth would have effortlessly dominated it. Let's look at it in hindsight. The closest thing we have to a full potential Anakin currently is Grandmaster Luke Skywalker. Grandmaster Luke Skywalker, along with Darth Krayt, was capable of contending with Abeloth, although it came as a very inconvenient time as her avatars were being destroyed around the galaxy, weakening her severely. And even this took extreme effort from both Krayt and Luke, who were two of the most powerful dark and light side force users we have ever known in the history of the EU. Furthermore, this Abeloth, who was actually weaker, due to the fact that her avatars were being destroyed, and the fact that she had not explored the galaxy for at least 3 millennia, and had not honed her powers, was actually very inexperienced. Abeloth was capable of fighting against the son and daughter, but outside of this, she had nothing to practice her force abilities on, no way to hone her skill, no way to one day rival the mastery of the father. Abeloth, more or less, is all raw power. Luke Skywalker claimed that Abeloth was 12 times his own natural sensitivity to the Force, and 1,000 times his own power. The only reason they were capable of even contending with Abeloth, and even then, Luke needed Darth Krayt, was due to the fact that they were in the realm beyond shadows and Abeloth's avatars were being destroyed. And if that hadn't have happened, I certainly believe Abeloth would have been able to defeat Darth Krayt and Grandmaster Luke Skywalker, two potentially the most powerful beings in all of galactic history. Abeloth's potential is relative to, but it's likely exceeding that of the Ones. She is likely on par with a being like the Celestial, and even exceeding that of her family. Anakin's potential rivaled that of Luke's, with Luke being considered by George Lucas the epitome and the rival to Anakin's potential, around 27 to 40,000 midichlorians per cell, which is unfathomably high. Luke Skywalker claimed that her potential was 12 times his own, meaning that this would also apply to Anakin. Anakin's potential was 12 times less than Abeloth, and Anakin was only one raindrop in a sea of Abeloth's power. In the end, I personally believe Yvonne Mortis, Anakin potentially could have prevailed, but anywhere else, and Abeloth would absolutely dominate even the full realized potential Chosen One. But what did you think of this video? Did you enjoy this and this lore breakdown on my hypothesis for what would happen if Abeloth and Anakin Skywalker with his full potential ever met up with one another and fought one another? Do you truly believe that I agree? Do you agree with my decision? Or do you believe that Anakin, if his full might mastering both light and dark, would have been able to conquer the embodiment of chaos? Farewell, my acolytes. I'll see you in a galaxy far, far away. And remember, the Force will be with you, even in its most corrupted and vile form.